What's really fascinating about ski jumping, especially like the flight part, is like time really it slows down and everything happens like in slow motion. And I've seen that part of me like come into effect a few times outside of the sport.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's interview with Nina Lussi, a former ski jumper from the United States. It's super cool to have you here today, Nina. I'm really excited.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Before we start with all the questions and the interview, would you like to shortly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, so I'm Nina Lussi. I was a professional ski jumper for Team USA for many, many years. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Like she said, I'm from Lake Placid, New York. And yeah, that's me.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like to first start this interview with kind of a look back to your career as a professional athlete because you've originally started with alpine skiing way back in your childhood, so to say, and then switched to ski jumping and partly also Nordic combination. So I guess there was a lot going on in your life, so to say. And I was asking myself if your early experiences with alpine skiing somehow prepare you in some way or the other for Nordic combination or ski jumping. For example, could you apply some skills or the general ski feeling or something like that?
Yeah, I would highly, highly recommend for anybody to learn how to ski before trying to ski jump or cross country ski. My background in alpine skiing, like I was on skis, age 3 or whenever I could walk, and it was just part of my family, and that's what we did. But it made the first jumps really quite easy, and for the cross country portion of things, I remember always being super confident on the downhills, and that's where I would make up some of the time that I lost on the long hill climbs.
Awesome. And have you done slalom or all the disciplines in alpine skiing before?
Yeah, I raced until I was about 12 years old. So we were doing giant slalom and starting to do slalom. I didn't like slalom that much, um, but I think it would have been fun to race speed. But you had to be
Yeah.
much older and much more mature for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in speed you also have these long jumps, so that's kind of, yeah, ski jumping relatable, so to say.
Yeah.
Cool. And why did you focus then on ski jumping instead of Nordic combination later on?
Well, so let's think back. Yeah, so originally, so I was trying to do all of the sports and it was great, but the weekends were only so long, so I chose ski jumping over alpine when I was, yeah, like I said, 12. And at that point, we still had junior national championships every year. So it was kind of tradition in our club that we had to do both Nordic combined and ski jumping. So I did it all the way through that. So I think you finished that when you were about 16. So I had a lot of fun doing that. We had team events and the individual, and it was just a chance to compete more, which I really enjoyed. I didn't enjoy the training as much for cross country as I did for ski jumping, though.
Yeah, I can imagine it's cardio a lot. So yeah. Okay, cool. And you went to a ski gymnasium in Stams in Austria. I think it's one of the most popular ski gymnasiums there are. And I was asking myself why Stams and not an American school that supports elite sports?
Yeah, we have many great academies here in the US, but none that are tailored towards ski jumping. There's one school in Park City, Utah, but it's only a day school. And for me, I live on the other side of the country, so I'd be leaving home anyway. And Stams was an opportunity to go to school full time, be a ski jumper full time, and be able to live there. So it really seemed like there couldn't be a better opportunity for me.
Cool. And now to a not that fun topic, I would say. You tore your ACL back in 2018, but since you came back ski jumping afterwards, I guess it healed again, obviously. But yeah, kind of what differences did you feel in your knee before and after this injury? if any?
Well, it's a pretty common thing in ski jumping. And so a lot of my former teammates, they all had, had knee problems, if not multiple knee surgeries. So I thought I was immune to it. I had gotten out of the most vulnerable years because when you're growing and I think your late teens as a woman, you're most susceptible. So I thought that, if I trained hard that I would be okay. Unfortunately, I could only escape it for so long, and then it got me. But it was, I mean, good and bad. Good that it gave me time to refocus, see what I wanted to do. That would have been an easy turning point to leave the sport behind, but for me, that wasn't an option. So, so I kept training hard, and had to, yeah, learn how to walk again, and that was a bit of a challenge, but I used that time to really develop a lot more core strength and kind of really strengthen all of the small muscles. And I think that was really helpful. And I had a great coach and team by my side, which helped me remain injury free to this day. So knock on wood.
Awesome. But did it impact your ski jumping performance then, or did you develop a nice workaround after your injury?
mm, I mean, it adds an element because when I was injured, it was from jumping far. So then in the back of your mind, you are a little bit nervous about doing that again. Um, but yeah, physically, I think it helped me. But you just need to be super conscientious, and especially making sure that your hamstring stays strong. Because I had a hamstring graft to repair the ACL. Um, so that's still to this day. I need to be sure to do some more exercises on the left side than the right to keep that strong.
And do you, apart from your hamstring, feel them or the injury or the past injury now in everyday life during normal workouts or only during professional athlete training?
Um, for some exercises and weather changes, but I'm not doing as much impact training, and now that I'm retired, so I'm not really putting as much stress on it. But that being said, is I know the importance of keeping it stable and keeping all of those muscles strong. So I'm trying to be smart about that. And yeah, but otherwise, I mean, it still hurts like at full range, and I know that there is a lot of cartilage damage in there, so that's not coming back. So I'm trying to kind of just keep it where it is.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Unfortunately, you missed the Olympics due to this ACL injury because up until this point you performed really well, also at the Olympic trials. So, yeah, the probability was high that you would go to the Olympics. Um, how did you deal then with the fact that you missed them in that very moment? You realized it, and the days after.
Yeah, that was really tough. Especially because when I was in the hospital, everyone was like, this was like hours later, and everyone's like, "Oh, did you go to the Olympics?" And you're like, "God, let's not talk about that right now." Um, so that was hard. And then when, yeah, so then when rehab started, I mean, it was a lot of like hard work, and you were really tired. But then about 3 months later, or 2 months, I guess, when I was starting to feel a little better, then the Olympics were on TV, and that was more difficult than I thought to watch. But I guess that's how it goes.
Yeah. Have you come to terms with it? Kind of found your peace with it now, or are there still moments when you think about it, um, even in today, so to say?
No, I think it's pretty okay. I mean, I don't have anything to really regret because, I went out doing my best and unfortunately crashed. It definitely inspired me for the next 4 years. It was just unfortunate that for 22, I was able to qualify a spot, but then it was the only spot qualified for the US team, so I didn't win at Olympic trials and lost the spot again at the end of December 4 years later. So having to do that two different ways was not great, but character building
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, cool. Um, yeah, and related to that question, between 2017 and 2018, you've not been part of the national team, even though you performed really well. Also, like we talked about at the Olympic trials before your injury. And I didn't understand why. Maybe you can tell us what happened.
Oh, well, I think many athletes that are involved in sports know there's always a political aspect. So yeah, I didn't meet the exact result criteria that they wanted, or they changed the rules. It was something a little bit suspicious, but it ended up being really helpful for me because it gave me the freedom to forge my own path. And I started training with a Slovenian club the year before and was able to continue working with that coach. And he was really the most instrumental coach in my success of my life. So I don't think I would have been where I was in 2018 without him. So it was a blessing in disguise, which is also why I wanted to win that much more at the Olympic trials. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe now to a more positive topic. um, yeah, since ski jumping has a lot to do with science regarding aerodynamics, air resistance, stuff like this, did you or your team get advice from scientists regarding optimizing aerodynamics, for example, in your jumps?
yeah, we did a little bit of work in a wind tunnel in Utah, which was interesting. So we were working with a few scientists there, but it was mostly just based on speed and like aerodynamics for the in run position as well as a flight simulation that we did. But I think there's tons of room for further exploration in that area. However, it's budget dependent, and the U.S. team did not have a very big budget, so that kind of limited the options. Yeah, I think personally it would be really, really fascinating to get a university on board and use the students to test out all kinds of things. But the athletes also need to be training, so they can't be like lab rats all the time. I know that the Norwegian team, for example, they made replicas of the actual athletes, so then they could test whatever they wanted with that. But again, that doesn't come cheap, so I don't even know what that
Oh,
cost.
wow.
Yeah.
That sounds super cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think
That's
they were using
awesome.
the Norwegian Space Agency as well, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Money's not short there. So,
Guess not.
wow. Wow. Okay, cool. That's super interesting. Um, wow. How did you deal with like unexpected events during your jumps? Like me, if I would be up in the air and there would be a sudden wind coming in, I would totally panic. And I don't know if maybe a ski jumper who doesn't really think about it in that moment, which because the jump is until that moment totally fine and everything is as usual. Maybe that's also kind of fear for you, or was it?
I think what's really fascinating about ski jumping, especially like the flight part, is like time really it slows down and everything happens like in slow motion. And I've seen that part of me like come into effect a few times outside of sport. For example, one time I was driving down the highway and the car in front of me, the tire just fell off and went flying into the air. And I just very calmly moved my car out of the way and like it happened really fast, but it didn't like rattle me. But I still like other small things in life get me really upset and like mad. But that was just like calm and just kind of kept driving and it was all fine.
Awesome. I think I need that a little bit. But yeah, cool. I mean, we talked a lot about your beginnings, your injury, other stuff about ski jumping, and I would love to talk to you about some more mental questions as well now. And yeah, starting with kind of the question about your goals. Did you prefer setting kind of technical goals, like next time I will try to jump a bit later or put my shoulder back or something like this? or rather external goals like in the next competition, I want to get the gold medal or be in the top three, something like that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I try to move away from that mindset of trying to put myself like at a certain position, um, because at the end of the day, I can control what I'm doing. I can't control what anybody else is doing, and there are times when I've had a great result at a competition but didn't have great jumps, and it really was not, even the number wasn't that satisfying. Whereas I've had other times where I've really, achieved those technical goals, and maybe the result wasn't as good, but it felt like I achieved what I set out to do that day, and being able to channel that and execute at the time on like the day of the competition is pretty meaningful to me.
Yeah, and I think it's also sometimes, I guess, a bit healthier for yourself because, like you said, it's not always in your own hands. And if you're always upset if you don't get the ranking you were hoping for, and you sometimes don't have it in your own hands, then it can be upsetting in the long term, I guess. So
Hmm.
yeah. And have you ever experienced numbness, for example, before your first World Cup start, before the jump, and how did you deal with it?
Um, Yeah, I don't think like my first World Cup it wasn't like too crazy because I knew the competitors, I knew the atmosphere. I had jumped on that hill before. So it wasn't that much like unknown, but I will say that my first Junior World Championships, so that was in I think I was 15, it was 2009, and I hardly remember anything. I was so overwhelmed. Like it was like around all of these new people. We were in Slovakia. It was my first like European ski jumping trip, and I honestly I hardly remember anything about the competition. I remember that I was taking my equipment off because I didn't think I made the top 30, and then I was in 29th or 30th, so I made the second round, and so I had to rush up to the top. And it was really funny because apparently I was rushing with this other Austrian girl who was also in the same position. She didn't think she had made the second round, and apparently talked to her a lot. And then years later, we were at school together, and she comes and she's like, "Oh, well, ever since that time, like I knew we would be friends." And I was like, "I don't remember that at all. Like, just don't remember it."
Oh my god, but that's a cute friendship story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So cool. But yeah, that's crazy that you don't remember that at all. Also really interesting.
Hmm.
So do you think that it influenced your performance then if you don't remember it, or was it kind of a good thing because you were
Maybe better,
in the
honestly,
zone?
because
Yeah.
I didn't. I guess I jumped pretty well, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I had like I improved ranks after that first round, so apparently I don't know.
Yeah. It
Um
helped.
yeah, something, I don't know.
All right. And you jumped kind of before and also during COVID, right?
Hmm.
So you prefer then to jump with audience or without
Yeah.
during your competitions?
Yeah, for sure. I missed that a lot. That was because I mean that's like the most special part is when you can feel the interaction of the crowd. So one of my favorite competitions that I've ever jumped in was the World Championships in 2019. It was really important to me because obviously I had to fight really hard for the comeback to like get back to that level again. But then I was selected to jump in the mixed team event, which is really special because then you're jumping with some of your idols from the men's World Cup, and you're alongside those guys, and the crowd was so huge, and so that was really really special to be back in Austria, like jumping in front of a huge crowd that was super animated, and my family was there too, so that was really really great. And then yeah, so during COVID, it was just quiet. You weren't really everyone was very cautious, so you weren't interacting with each other either, so that made it pretty lonely too because I'd moved to France, so I was traveling with the French team then and getting changed like in the changing room with them, but then I could hardly talk to even the American team, which was weird. um, and then that totally like we came to the Olympic trials, which was December, yeah, end of December 2021, so right before the Olympics, and there was a crowd allowed, and it was in my hometown, and they had just finished the jumps again, and that was I was not ready for that. It was like it was so crazy when I got on the bar, like the volume rose like doubly, and it was just crazy, and there was all kinds of people there cheering, which normally you don't really hear that if you're in the zone, but I guess I wasn't in the exact right zone because I heard it.
Yeah. Crazy. I think it's also super impressive if ski jumpers jump and then they see you have these pictures where they are just like at the beginning of the jump and you see the whole
Hmm.
crowd. Like this is super cool, and I can imagine that's an awesome feeling if you experience that once or
Yeah, I
twice
don't
or
think you see it and then you're in the air. You're really just doing what you're doing. But then when you're skiing out and like stopping at the bottom and you can hear people all
yeah,
around you, it's really, really special.
yeah, then you can take it all in. Cool. Yeah. Another meta question before we come to another topic. I think sometimes it can be healthy if you attribute your failures, which I think everyone has, to external reasons. For example, I had a bad day, not enough sleep, something like that. And not to internal reasons. For example, my technique is just shitty, so to say,
Hmm.
to protect your self esteem as well. And I would like to know how you deal with, or how we dealt with, rather, improving on one side, finding your ski jumping errors, improving them, and not being too harsh with yourself so that you can still be confident, which is essential for performing well, taking risk, and stuff like this, right?
Hmm. Yeah, so I'll say I would definitely always like shoulder the blame myself and always put it like onto like a technical failure and not try to blame anything else. But that kind of was a hindrance sometimes. Like there was some equipment that I was testing and I was sure that if I jumped better it would feel better, but I should have initially just switched the like suit I was using because it wasn't working for me, and instead of being like, oh, this isn't working, I'm going to try something else, I was like, oh, I just need to jump better and then it will work. So that's where it kind of backfired a little bit.
Yeah, that's a fine line, I guess. Okay, but that's a nice example that you can really, I don't know, show us, the audience, where this was exactly maybe a disadvantage in your thinking. But yeah, I'm a little bit sad because we are almost at the end of the interview, but still one topic group, so to say, your retirement, because you already said it, you retired this year.
Hmm.
And I was wondering if you had any kind of retirement coaching, so to say, to make the transformation easier. Where
um
athletes to coaches. Yeah.
Yeah, the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee actually has a system in place to try to help athletes through their retirement. I naively thought if I trained really hard and, did my best and was content with my career that I would just be able to like ride off into the sunset and start something new and it would all be great. That was not that was not the case. It was very challenging, of just feeling the loss of identity and, being like, what do I do now? And trying to fill the void that was your passion and your career and trying to find something that'll fill both of those things, which I've now realized that's asking for a lot. So instead of trying to find the thing the job that I really want to have for the next 20 years, just try to learn something and, get into something else. And I also had the opportunity to connect with other Team USA athletes who were going through the same thing. And that was, I think, the most impactful because there were some, that had reached the goals that I still hadn't. And, they, like, one has an Olympic gold medal. And I was like, well, they have the gold medal, but they're still here. So I guess it's just a natural part of the sport. And so, yeah, I definitely respect it a lot more now than I did before. But again, I feel good for having done everything that I could and not having regrets in that sense. But it's still not as easy as I thought.
Hmm. And how long do you think did the process from your first thought, okay, maybe I should retire, to being absolutely sure and announcing it take?
Well, that's hard to say. I think I knew in the back of my head I wanted to go through the Olympic cycle, and I had made plans to be training in France through the 22 season. I hadn't discussed it with the federation or anybody kind of a little bit further out of my inner circle because I just didn't think that it was really, I didn't want their opinion and I didn't really think that it was necessary. So, um, I mean, I knew that I wanted to be finished, but then I mean, there were times in the summer or in the fall at least where the hard training's done and you're like, oh, yeah, this everything's going great. Like, oh, I'll just keep doing this, because you just forget quickly. Um, but yeah, so then I slowly started telling people during the last Continental Cups because we had like a little tour in the US. And for me to be able to finish in Lake Placid at home at the end of the year on the Continental Cup was like a perfect way to end. So I knew that that would be a really nice way to go out and to like not, you know, be in the middle of Russia or something in a World Cup and be like, okay, well, I'm done, and then just kind of being left there. So instead, I got to celebrate with my family, and that was really special. So yeah, so I didn't hide it from people, but I also wasn't openly announcing it to anyone because it was a personal decision, and I didn't really want any input from other
Mhm.
sides.
Yeah, but that's actually really a sweet ending with your family and
Yeah.
at home. That's super cool. Is there anything that you can tell us that you miss the most and not at all about being a ski jumper?
I'll start with not at all.
Yeah.
I don't miss the days of like having bad competitions. And so the World Cup started last week, so I was watching it and I was like, oh, because I mean, not everyone can have a good day every time, and it's just so painful if you have like a bad day, you miss qualification, and then you traveled all the way to Poland, for example, and you have to travel all the way home, and you kind of didn't do anything the whole weekend, and you're like, oh, this sucks. So don't miss that. But I do miss like the the actual ski jumping is really like it's such a beautiful sport. I love that, and I think I will always love that. Um, so I miss that, and a little bit I miss the traveling, the people that you get to travel with, and going to certain places. I'll always love those places, and I have a lot of good memories from those.
Yeah, that's cool. And also to have this team with you traveling from one place to the other and supporting each other. I think this I can imagine this is awesome to have like your support
Yeah, it's
system.
awesome when they're being supportive. It's less awesome when it's not the case, because then you're
Yeah,
you're very
that's
close together for a very long time, and
yeah,
that's can be exhausting.
yeah. Yeah, I guess yeah, we all can relate
Yeah.
in some yeah surroundings when yeah things things get heavy then. But yeah,
Hmm.
apart from that, it can be fun
Yes.
if everything is cool. Yeah, and now to your life now, what are your short and also long term goals for the future? I mean, you told me you have a new job, and
Hmm.
yeah,
So yeah, so I started this new job, and so I'm learning a lot of normal business skills. So although I have a lot of world experience, some of the other skills are a little bit rusty. So I'm getting better at that, learning about that, and I'm not exactly sure where I see myself going. I would like to stay involved in sports in a sense, but I think more through marketing or through, brand sponsorships or something like that. That would be interesting to me. I don't see myself as a coach or directly involved with a federation. I think I put in put in my hours with that. So maybe in a few years I'll circle back. But right now, I'm excited to try something new. But again, I would love to stay connected with sports. So we'll see. We'll see if I manage to find a way.
Yeah, and like you said, it makes sense to take your time and then find something you have fun with now, and then see what happens in some years. Um, yeah, that's cool. It's also for us. I mean, we're not professional athletes, but between my friends and me, we are studying and now finding our first jobs, and we're all, yeah. I think it's the same for us. We also find something for the next few years, and then see what happens afterwards.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted, I just wanted to like find out right away and go and start. But I guess it's kind of part of the learning curve.
Yeah,
Just as much time as you are finding out what you want to do, you're finding out what you don't want to do. So just trying to make
yeah,
sure I see the value in that.
that's also learning. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Exactly.
cool. Cool. Yeah, I wish you all the best
Thank you. Thanks
for
for having
this
me.
future. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and this super interesting interview. I learned a lot and I had a lot of fun as well.